right, perfect. All right, I'm going to begin by going through the Victory Day presentation, and I'm going to share my screen. And let's talk about some of the changes that children have had in the month of March on the Doman International Program. So we're going to start with Daniel. Daniel is 13 years old, and he has been diagnosed as being developmentally delayed, quadriplegic, and hemiplegic. And so Daniel, one of his big achievements over the last 6 months from doing the Doman program is running over 2,000 meters, 2 kilometers a day. I believe he couldn't even do 100 meters 6 months ago, and now he can do 2 kilometers. He has achieved an outstanding physical milestone. It really shows the determination, but also his endurance and his progress. And he has really shown a lot of perseverance in building his strength and mobility. There you can see a photo of Daniel, and he has greatly improved in understanding both time and math concepts, which is obviously a huge concern for many children with special needs. He has, for example, mastered mathematical operations. So now he's very good with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Keep in mind, he's 13 years old, and now for the first time in his life, he's able to do math operations. Before, his mom said before he was completely unable to basically to do basic math. So he's shown better problem solving skills, logical thinking, and ability to process complex information. And his understanding of time is also really important for his independence. By the way, if I didn't say this, Daniel is from New Zealand. Daniel is now taking control of his daily schedule. So mom has said this makes life a lot easier because he's not always constantly reliant on her to tell him what to do and when. So he's following his own treatment program now with self-discipline. That is really a major breakthrough for Daniel. So Daniel also, I have to say, I saw him at his recent evaluation, and he went from being someone who was very insecure with himself to being very confident. So, he's the kind of kid now that, when he walks into the room, he'll come over to you and say hi and ask you how you're doing and make eye contact with you. And this was a child before who was very socially insecure. And so he's really come out of his shell in these last 6 months. And so, really, we want to congratulate Daniel and his parents for some great work. All right, next we have Victoria. And Victoria is from Venezuela. So we're representing a lot of continents today. We've just did New Zealand in Oceania. Now we're doing South America. Victoria has developmental delay. She's 10 years old, but she also has other diagnoses like microcephaly, spasticity, so that's tightness in her muscles. And she also has a chromosomal deletion, which is a genetic condition. So Victoria, at the age of 10, no longer needs nighttime diapers, which, again, sometimes when children with special needs make gains, skeptics will say, that would have happened anyway. The child learns to walk when they're 2 years old, and they say, oh, that child would have learned to walk anyway. Or the child starts talking at 3, and they go, oh, they would have started talking anyway. A lot of the time that's not true, but still sometimes people make those claims. When you look at kids like Daniel, who start doing math at 13 for the first time in their lives, or kids like Victoria, who no longer need nighttime diapers at the age of 10, those aren't things that just would have happened anyway. Those are things that required work and a helpful program. So just after 1 week of beginning the program, Victoria no longer needed diapers at night. So within a week, mom saw that huge progress. And she's just demonstrated significant progress in bladder control and in independence. Also, her vocabulary has greatly expanded, and she has more fluent speech. So Victoria now is using a lot more words when she's talking, but her speech itself has become more fluent. And she can now begin conversations on her own. Before she really had to, she had kind of repetitive phrases that she would always go back to. Now she can have more spontaneous back and forths when socializing. She has progressed a lot in gymnastics. She is now initiating her gymnastics routine independently, so she can actually go through a gymnastics floor routine that involves many different physical skills, and she can do that on her own. So that really shows, when you see a child with a chromosomal deletion, with developmental delay, stand up in front of a group and do a gymnastics routine on their own, that's a really amazing thing to watch, because it's not just the physical movement that they have to the different gymnastic skills that are difficult. It's the social aspect of standing up in front of others and doing it. There's the cognitive aspect of remembering the whole sequence of different gymnastics activities, and so Victoria is able to do that now on her own. Now, also, mom has noticed that her problem solving and independence has gotten better. Instead of asking for help immediately, now she starts to look to do things for herself, like getting her own food now, when before she would have to rely on parents to give that to her. So she's much more self reliant than she was before. And also, she's now serving herself, for example. So she'll go get food, get ice and water when she needs it. Here in this photo, you can see Victoria she's sitting and reading, but she's listening to one of the auditory programs that Doman International does. We have various music programs that are really helpful for training the brain. And so you can see Victoria's both reading and doing an auditory program at the same time, doing two basically treatments at the same time. And she's started to read much more confidently. She has shown an improvement in her literacy and comprehension, and that this milestone really reflects her cognitive growth and enthusiasm for learning. And Vicky's walking has noticeably gotten better this period. So she's more confident from a mobility standpoint. She has better balance, strength, and coordination than she did before. And also, I have to say, her running has also improved. I saw a video of it recently. Vicky's journey, is really inspiring to many. I've seen many families that have children with the same chromosomal deletion as Victoria. When they see what Victoria has achieved on the Doman program, they're astonished because she's doing things that they never thought were possible with that genetic condition. Very often, professionals will say your child will never do these things with this diagnosis, and so Victoria is proving those things wrong. So congratulations to Vicky and to her amazing family. All right. Now we have Grace. Grace is 4 years old and has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, also called trisomy 21. And Grace is 4 years old and is from Australia. Grace has really reached an amazing physical milestone now. She's now running, and she has better strength, coordination, and endurance. She also has better balance, which has been critical for her to get better at running. And her overall physical fitness and independence has gotten better. Now, along with that running, we've also seen progress in Grace's speech. For anyone who knows a child with Down syndrome, you likely know that speech challenges are some of the biggest challenges that they have. But we very often find that when we help children learn to run, we often find a progress in their speech development because the increased oxygen delivery from the running to the brain results in improved speech development. So Grace is now speaking in phrases and sentences with much clearer articulation than she was before. And now she's able to convey her thoughts with more clarity now. And so that's very, very important for her. You can imagine being 4 years old, being able to tell your family about what you want and need is really, really important. So, yeah, we really want to, congratulate Grace and her family for what they've achieved. And, for children like Victoria and Grace, who both have genetic diagnoses, it's inspiring for other families with uh, genetic diagnoses to know that children can really greatly surpass what a lot of doctors predict for them. Well, next we have Maggie. Maggie is 7 years old and has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And that cerebral palsy has affected her right side of her body much more than the left. And Maggie now is speaking in phrases and conversations. When I saw Maggie's parents at this last visit and they told me she was speaking in sentences, I said to them, I remember when we were in the office together and talking about how parents were concerned. Maggie could only say one syllable of a word. So, for example, if she wanted to say baby, she might just say bay, like the first syllable. She couldn't even say the full word. And I remember even parents expressing at one point, will she ever kind of get past this? Will she ever say more than a syllable at a time? And after a lot of work with her Doman program, she's now talking in phrases and full sentences. She's engaging in short conversations, which I saw her doing at her last appointment. The other great thing about Maggie, and I think this is connected with her great speech development, she's also reading commercial books now. So in her evaluation, she pulled out a commercial book. You can see a photo of her here reading, and she read it out loud for us, right? So she read through, and keep in mind, this was a child who could not even say a word, just about a year ago, and now she's reading commercial books out loud. It's pretty impressive stuff. And obviously, her reading improvement is not just an improvement in reading, it shows progress in comprehension and concentration. Here you can see Maggie, pretty impressive for a child with a cerebral palsy diagnosis. Here you can see her essentially rock climbing up a wall. I tried that once and I never tried it again because I definitely didn't make it as high as Maggie made it in that photo. One of the most difficult physical challenges I've ever had. So here, here you can see her at a local climbing wall. This requires so much coordination, balance, strength, and Maggie is really showing off. And keep in mind, her right side is affected more than her left, but she's got to use her right side when she's doing activities like this, and really shows off the great progress she's had with the mobility programs that are part of the Doman Method. So I think when we see Maggie climbing that wall, I mean, it's impressive on its own, but it's also kind of symbolic for the huge changes that she's made. I mean, for a child with a cerebral palsy diagnosis to be talking, walking, running, is really, climbing walls, really, really amazing. So congratulations to Maggie and to her family. I want to point out to everyone, you can see that actually the majority of children that we're looking at in this presentation are children ages 6 and up. And I think it was only one child, Grace, who was under the age of 6. And that's because, while of course, the earlier you can start the Doman method, the better, right? Because the earlier we start, the more likely we are to get results. The average age of a child starting our program is 6 to 8 years of age. And we have many children who are older, like Daniel, 13 years old, who are making amazing gains. So I'm actually glad when we have more older children to feature on Victory Day, so parents out there can know that there's hope at any age. Here you can see Harry. Harry is 6 years old. There he is with his family. He's been diagnosed with autism and global developmental delay. So this period, parents had a huge achievement, which is with the doctors at Doman International, So with consulting with the doctors on our team, they were able to wean Harry off of one of his anti-epileptic medications. These medications are incredibly powerful. They have a strong, um, they're sedatives, so they greatly reduce energy. They've been shown in research to lower IQ and cognitive function, and they often have very, other side effects that can be really problematic. So, to give you one example, Harry was uh, often, he had learned to walk, but he started out of nowhere losing his balance and falling down constantly, which of course was very worrisome to parents because he had just learned to walk and now he's falling over. And when we researched the anti-epileptic medication he was on, turns out one of the side effects is affected balance. And so once he was weaned off that medication, again, I'm not recommending to any parents to wean medication on their own. You've got to do it with a consulting doctor. So Harry's parents did it with the physicians at Doman International helping them. But once he was weaned off the medication, the balance problems disappeared. And Harry now can walk around. He doesn't fall down randomly. So it seems like that was purely a side effect of the medication. So this has been a huge, huge achievement for Harry and for his parents. Now Harry is feeling pain consistently for the first time in his life. The ability to feel pain is a life-saving ability, right? If you step on a pin or you put your hand on a hot stove, your brain needs to immediately recognize that's a threat to your life. And so Harry now, for the first time in his life, consistently responds to hot, cold, and pain, which is gonna, puts him in a much safer place in his daily life. And now he is recognizing and reading words. As part of his Doman Method reading program, he's been taught many reading words, and he has demonstrated that he's able to recognize them. He has now, excuse me, now he's running up to 10 meters without stopping. And again, remember, I was telling you how just 6 months ago, he couldn't even walk short distances because his balance was being affected by the medication. Now he's running 10 meters without stopping. And he has improved muscle tone, balance, and confidence when he's running. When it comes time for Harry to communicate, there's a Doman Method program that we use called the choice board. The choice board, imagine a whiteboard with different options on it. And what we can do with Harry is we can say, okay, Harry, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? Like, do you want chicken, or do you want beef, or do you want rice? Well, we can give him different options. And Harry now with his hand can indicate what he wants, point to what he wants. And as you can imagine, that makes a huge difference in your life. Imagine for the first time being able to indicate your wants and needs by pointing. It makes a huge difference. So we really want to congratulate Harry for his achievements in this period, and also, commend parents for their hard work in this 6 months. All right, now we have Vanessa. Vanessa's 9 years old and has been on the program for 6 months. And she's been given the diagnosis of autism, developmental delay, also epilepsy, so history of seizures, and microcephaly. So one of the great things about, with the Doman Method, we really try to focus on a child from a functional standpoint. So for example, if a child has seizures, how do we eliminate the seizures? If a child isn't talking, how do we get them talking? If a child isn't walking, how do we get them walking? That's called functional progress, right? We want to help the child function better in day-to-day life. But sometimes there are other tests that can be done that can confirm the progress that the child has had. And so Vanessa is now 1 year seizure-free, which is amazing. And also, she has an improved EEG. So the EEG is showing, improved results. And that has to be the result of improved brain development. And probably the Doman program has played a huge role for Vanessa because she's had a lot of great changes in this period. So for example, she has enhanced fine motor skills, which includes a pincer grasp. So now she can pick up objects with pincer grasp, which is, opposing the thumb and the forefinger. That's so important for fine motor skills and activities like writing and drawing. She's also feeding herself independently now with utensils. A lot of parents have concerns when a child cannot feed themselves independently. And you can imagine for a 9-year-old, that could come after years of being fed by other people. And so now she's completely independently feeding herself, a crucial step towards self-sufficiency in her life. Now she's learned how to sew independently. That's better than me. I can't really sew, so great job, Vanessa. And that requires so much fine motor skills, good eye contact, hand-eye coordination. It's really amazing stuff that Vanessa has achieved this period. Vanessa is also now more aware of her own body, and she's following instructions now. So for example, now if she's asked to identify a body part, like where is your nose, she can tell you. And she can even distinguish between left and right, which is very difficult. Even for a lot of neurotypical children, that's a difficult thing to achieve. Her speech has improved greatly this period. She's able to communicate more clearly and effectively, and that's really important. So she can communicate, her needs with her family. With her crawling, so as part of the Doman Method program, 2 activities we often do are crawling on the belly and creeping on the hands and knees. And for Vanessa, these 2 activities have been very helpful for her in her overall brain development and progress. And so she has now incredible progress in her mobility, thanks to the crawling and creeping that she's been doing in her daily mobility program. She's more serialized in her movements, meaning more coordinated. And now she can walk with better balance on different kinds of terrains. So for example, she can walk on flat terrains, on hills now, and even kind of uneven terrains. So we really want to, congratulate Vanessa and her parents. Congratulations on the 1 year of being seizure free, and for that improved EEG. Really, really special progress. All right. Well, that is the Victory Day presentation. So, now, we've got some additional time. I'm happy to take questions now from the audience. So, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or on Instagram, you can go ahead and type your questions in. Colleen, do you have something?
Yeah, I've been informed that we are not live on Instagram.
We're not live on Instagram.
We're not live on Instagram. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me.
I didn't want to
interrupt. Okay, no, I appreciate that. Okay, I just clicked us live. Yeah, so we should be live on Instagram now.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah. So I guess we'll go to questions now from the audience. Colleen, any kind of announcements from your side about what Doman International is doing now, or what the next few months are going to look like?
Well, yeah, I guess the main thing is that we've got, we're continuing to schedule appointments. Really, like, they're really starting to fill up. So anybody who's interested in an appointment should get in touch with us as soon as possible. Particularly if we have, I think we have a waiting list right now for April in Italy. but we are booking for July, and the waiting list doesn't mean you won't necessarily get in because people's plans change and all that. So if you feel like that's a good time for you, then please get in touch and we can see about getting you on the waiting list. Um, but yeah, that other than that is just, yeah, we're cracking along, and I love that more and more people are coming to this live. I think it's a really fantastic resource for parents. So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. Uh, okay, um, I see a question here. Um, it says, in the Doman program, there have been a lot of improvements in sitting tolerance, listening well. Yet I have a question on social communication. He has words, he knows a lot. I read him many books, yet he doesn't initiate conversations with other kids. In autism, they say lack of motivation and interest in others. How would the Doman program work in bringing out social skills? Also, my child at times does deliberately, even when I say to refrain from it. Okay. So, in terms of the kind of connection between, speech development and communication. So, yeah, so a lot of children with autism and other special needs for that matter, because their speech development is delayed, that often affects them socially and kind of for obvious reasons. If you're not able to communicate clearly, you're going to be much less likely to want to socially interact with others. It's, imagine for a second if someone was walking into a party and I said, okay, listen, you can go into the party, but you can't talk to anyone. You'd probably not feel like walking in at all, right? And so it's really, really tough for these children. And by the way, it often leads to not only a lack of social interest, but also sometimes to behavioral issues because there might be frustration that they can't communicate their wants and needs. So, I think the most important thing is developing speech. And so in this question about what are activities that we can do for speech development, one thing that we do, and keep in mind, this is an activity for a child who already says words but isn't really saying a lot of sentences, is we do something called scripted conversations. Scripted conversations are a bit like imagine a scene from a play where mom or dad has a part and child has a part. And what you do is you create the script for you and your child to practice together. And then as your child learns their part, they're able to more and more spontaneously say their part. Okay. So this is very helpful for kids who don't yet spontaneously speak in sentences. So let me actually see, because I just shared my screen. I want to see if I have a scripted conversation up on my screen. Colleen, you might need to help me here just to make sure that people can see what I'm putting up in front of them.
Definitely, I'll let you know.
Can you
Okay.
can you
Yep,
see
we
the
see it.
scripted conversation?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, yeah, this is a conversation which is called meeting someone, and you can see we've made this in the style of a Doman homemade book. If you don't know what a homemade book is, it's okay, but it's a part of the Doman reading program. And you can see that this specific scripted conversation has a name, meeting someone. And you can see, like I said, it's like a scene from a play. Mom has a part, and then the child has a part, right? So mom is saying, who do you love to play with? And then the child is saying, Papa, right? And then mom is saying, how old are you? And the child says, I'm 5 years old. Okay. So when you begin this kind of scripted conversation with the child, you begin just by reading it to the child. So you'd say, okay, mom says, who do you love to play with? Right. And then you say to the child, and then you say, Papa. And so in the beginning, the child will begin by repeating after you. You'll say Papa, and child will repeat Papa. But after a few sessions, you'll start to see your child actually starting to say their part spontaneously. They won't need you to say it for them to repeat it. And that's very important because now we're really helping the child gain spontaneous speech, which is what we're really trying to do here. We're trying to give the child an enlarged vocabulary and help them with speaking sentences. So you can see in this scripted conversation, the child's part can be full sentences. The child might be saying, my favorite color is green, right? Or my favorite movie is whatever. But the whole point of the scripted conversation is you can run through it maybe 3 times a day with the child. And by the end of a week, many children are saying their entire parts fully spontaneously. We put it in larger print to help the child with reading it. But also, it's not really a reading program. It's the script is really there just to remind the child of what their part is, and that helps them with their spontaneity. Okay, so that's a scripted conversation. It's something which can be helpful for children who don't speak in sentences spontaneously.
Spencer, do you want to address the rest of her question about why he does things deliberately even when she says not to, or he laughs by not following directions, or does it wrongly?
Yeah, he laughs by not following a direction at times, or does it wrongly. Why does this happen? Well, I mean, it can be a bit hard to say without really knowing a child why exactly they do something, right? Some children might. There are certain children that laugh for no apparent reason. It's one of the symptoms of their neurodevelopmental issue. And then there are some children who might laugh at something just because they're teasing mom and dad, and it's their way of playing a game with them. So if you ask him to do something and he laughs at you, maybe he's teasing you. But for the children who maybe laugh for reasons that aren't obvious to us, what I would say is they're laughing at something. It's just not obvious for us. Many of those children have sensory issues. So sometimes they'll hear a sound or they'll see something, but what they're experiencing is different from us. So, I've seen children, for example, when another child will cry, sometimes they'll laugh. And it's not because that child is getting enjoyment out of the pain of the other kid. It's because the sound of the crying they hear in a different way. And for some reason to them, it sounds kind of silly and funny. And so they start laughing. And we know that because if they see the child crying, they don't like it. But if they just hear it, they might laugh. And so some children have sensory issues and they respond in that way. And so that's why with kids with special needs on our program, we do intense sensory integration to help develop the sensory development of the child, improve their hearing, their tactility, and their vision.
May I put in a plug for the social development program as well?
Please do. Yeah.
Because I think that when we're working on all of these issues, which are probably causing our kids to have somewhat inappropriate reactions to social cues and things, which we know they struggle with. We also know that they're a kid. They're real kids, and sometimes it's a matter of addressing those sensory issues like you were talking about, Spencer, but also teaching them, okay, this is the way that we react, this is the way that we deal with things. And I think our social development program does that in such a great way, because it acknowledges the fact that, hey, you may experience things a little differently, which is why you react this way, but you're also, you're a kid who is very intelligent, and I'm going to teach you how to, as your parent. I'm not going to assume that you don't get it. I'm going to assume you do get it, and we're just having a little issue with expressing it in the right way. But I think our social development program is so tremendously respectful of the kids' potential and ability, to help them to get up a level. Because the rest of the world isn't going to expect as much from them, but obviously mom and dad are like, no, you get it. We're gonna work on this. And you are going to listen to me. You can't pretend you don't understand me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other questions on, you know, coming in right now on any of the social media platforms. Colleen, any questions you've gotten recently, you know, from a parent that you felt would be worth discussing?
Yeah, I actually just recently was talking to a mom, single mom, um, does not live near family, but she's really interested in, you know, learning how to implement our program with her kid. And she was just wondering what recommendations we had for parents, because she said she's read the books and she's like, obviously it would be really helpful if I had more people with me
Mhm.
to be helpful. So she said, what is our recommendation for, you know, single moms, single dads who might be struggling in that way?
Yeah, you know, the first thing I'd say is that it's very possible for a single parent to do our program. And I know this from many years of experience watching single parents achieve amazing results doing the program. And so the first thing I'd say is don't allow that to stop you from starting the program, even if it is just you. Now, the second thing I'd say is that, listen, if there are other people around you who might be willing to help, volunteer, lend a hand, do the program with your child, or help you in any way, accept that help. You know, because we've had a lot of single parents do our program, but very often they'll have, you know, a brother or sister. When I say brother or sister, I mean parents have a brother or sister, like an uncle or an aunt, or a grandparent, or sometimes it'll just be a neighbor. You know, I recently there was a family in our clinic, and they had a lady, an older lady who was with them. I assumed it was grandmother. It wasn't. It was just a older neighbor who was there to help and wanted to do the program with the child, and was a huge help, I have to say, because the parents had a younger baby that they were also caring for. So yeah, if you can have some kind of support structure around you, that's great. But that being said, I know a lot of parents who have done it on their own too and done great jobs. Anything else, Colleen, for single parents that you'd comment on?
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, definitely being open to it, it's amazing how many people are open to helping when you start sort of putting that out there a little
Mm.
bit. I think, especially in the United States, I can't speak for other countries, but I do think that here a lot of people feel embarrassed to ask for help. You know, the assumption here is, oh, everybody's dealing with their own stuff, so I shouldn't bother anyone else. But I think people really love to to help in whatever way they can if you make it known that you need that. I know my mom even hired a she hired like a high school age girl,
Mhm.
you know, one of our babysitters to help her make materials when she was doing a full program, and just wanted that extra time. And you know, she would give her all the raw stuff and say, here, stick this on that, you know.
Yeah.
And she had really nice handwriting, so she had her making word cards, and even something that small was a huge help to her.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was
think
speaking to
open.
a family in California recently, and now they get some state funding for respite care, you know, basically a helper to come into the home for a certain number of hours a week to help with the child. And this respite worker who's been coming in is fantastic at doing the program. So now the mom told me, look, it's not the first person we had. Like we had to find the right person. But when we did, it's like a godsend because now you have someone who really helps not just helps the parents with doing the program, but also it's good for children to have the experience of doing the different Doman program activities with different adults because each adult will bring their own personality to it, their own way of coaching the child, and it's just fun. It's fun to have different people coming into your home. So yeah, this mom was saying how much of a difference it made to have this help.
I know for years, I still sometimes meet people who say, "Oh, I used to volunteer to pattern," in
Mhm.
like the 60s or 70s, and I've heard about it through that because I was a volunteer. I'm like, that's really cool that they still
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, I was on an airplane recently, and the woman in front of me, and I just started chatting, and she asked me about what I did, and I told her, and she said, "Wow, that sounds so similar to when I used to go with a family to Chestnut Hill, in Philadelphia, for appointments when I was a teenager." And I said, "Yeah, same place." And she knew about my grandfather, and she lived
Wow.
on a kibbutz in Israel and was patterning the child. So yeah, it was really it's really amazing. Those things about once a year I'll run into someone randomly who they did patterning when they were a few decades ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely I think for single parents or even if it's mom and dad but they live in a place where it's like we don't have any family nearby and we feel funny. I feel like even a lot of times even if you're not religious yourself, like churches are looking for volunteer opportunities. They've got I know even and high school students, at least in the United States, I think most seniors now have to do a certain amount of community service, like work
Mhm.
hours.
Right.
That's a really great resource because they have to do it.
Yeah.
It could also be the start of something really meaningful for them, which is really cool. And yeah, then your kid gets a different energy also from those kids.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, Colleen, anything else that you think is important for people to know about?
Let me see. We I don't think we have any. I don't think we have a webinar scheduled yet for "Is the Doman Method right for your family?" So
Hmm.
we'll
I can't
announce that
remember off the
shortly.
top of my
Yeah,
head,
neither can I.
but
But we
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 should
will
schedule one. Yeah.
we will announce
Yeah.
that. And actually, if anybody out there, I just got a call from my brother yesterday who said he had met a woman at the gym whose child is nonverbal,
Mm.
and so he gave her my contact information, which is great. But yeah, I think for anybody who's maybe talking to other parents, don't feel like you need to tell them everything.
Mm.
It's easy to get into it, but then you end up kind of spinning a little because you're like, oh well, it's this and it's this and it's this. If you talk to any other parents who are interested in the Doman method, try to say as little as possible and and just pass them on to us because make sure that they know there's never any obligation contacting us. We are not trying to get them to do anything, but it's really just for information. And again, it might be the beginning of something really exciting for that other family, you know, as well as for you. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, Colleen. And for everyone who joined us late, if you go back and you watch the beginning of this webinar, I go through uh, something called Victory Day, where I talk about the results of different children on our program and what they've achieved in the last month. And it's pretty inspiring stuff.
For sure.
All right. Everyone, have a great rest of your week. See you back here next week.